from his war-torn childhood to his intimidatingly surreal performance in the octagon. Here's why fighters are so scared of Khamzat Chimaev. I mean, you have to be scared of him. After all, he's been in combat sports since he was a child. He's a serious reminder that the world of combat sports is not an easy road to walk on, and often those who compete in them do it out of dire need because they have nowhere else to go. And much like the many other UFC stars who fought their way out of a rough start, so did Khamzat Chimaev. He came from Chechnya, and during his childhood had to deal with the Second Chechen War with Russia and its effects on the country. The 28-year-old recalls his younger days as a hard time when he wouldn't have anything to eat.
I was surprised when they changed the opponent, so I was ready for everyone. I trained for everyone, so if you think you're the best guy, so you took the fight.
Geez, coming from such a rough childhood even makes getting into the octagon look more appealing. Nevertheless, Chimaev used fighting as an escape and channeled his potential into the popular sport at the young age of 5. And if you know anything about wrestling or MMA in recent years, you know how scary the wrestling style from the Russian side can be. Fighters like Khabib Nurmagomedov show how absolutely dominating Dagestani wrestling can be, and Chimaev flourished in wrestling, winning a bronze medal at the Junior Russian National Championships. He eventually had to leave Chechnya with his mother and moved to Sweden, where he went on to win 3 Swedish National Wrestling Championships. Many people believe rough childhoods like this create a hunger within fighters, and Boys' childhood rough from war, poverty, and relocation.
First time we come so many people, that a lot of guys, 5 guys coming today as well. Like almost like all the gym is coming here, and yeah, we have fun here.
But Chimaev's wrestling background and talented striking make him an insanely well-rounded fighter. I mean, as everyone knows in MMA,
give me fight. When you want, I'm gonna fight you. I'm gonna be champion here.
if you enter the sport, at some point or another, the fight comes down to the wrestling and grappling game. And you can bet your bottom dollar Chimaev has got that covered. He doesn't only have a well-versed background in Russian wrestling, but also knows judo and combat sambo. Heck, he doesn't only know it, he's competed in whole tournaments and fought in them professionally. There aren't many fighters in the UFC roster, and I mean pound for pound, who can compete with Chimaev's grappling game. Though, that's just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to this guy, because how he plays technically in the fight is masterful. For instance, he often uses his intimidating wrestling takedowns by putting the fighter off balance and dominating them. Or sometimes, he'll use a feint and lure them into his perfectly placed striking. And Chimaev does not lack in striking either. I mean, in his fight against Gilbert Burns, he had to win by points, and he had to come back from being taken down twice.
We want to know what's going on. How good is this guy? And so far, he's got Gilbert in a real bad situation.
And he still managed to pull it off, winning by unanimous decision in the end. And just by the way, he won Fight of the Night in that event. I mean, what can't this guy do? Chimaev is very confident in his striking too. Even though he's never fought at 185 pounds since debuting in the UFC, he revealed that he believes he's even ready to fight Israel Adesanya.
I'm most dangerous guy here. I gotta come for everyone. I kill everybody. Allah Akbar.
You came into this fight.
Which is crazy for a wrestler turned fighter to say. And that's another part of what makes Chimaev so scary. His relentless willingness to fight anyone. I mean, he's very intimidating as it is already. He's very tall at 6 foot 2 inches and sometimes seems too buff for the welterweight division. And don't take it from me, you can hear Alexander Gustafsson echo the same sentiment. According to him, Chimaev is simply just too big and too strong for the welterweight division. Simply the fact that Khamzat is sparring with light heavyweight division former champions like Gustafsson should shock you.
I always think to myself, okay, either I whine and cry about this and I will never end up to any solution, or
And Chimaev goes toe-to-toe with him even though Gustafsson weighs tens of kilos more than him. Seriously, he's ready to go whenever you need him to. He's gotten into a physical altercation with Khabib's crew at a UFC event as well, with whom he later settled the beef. But everyone in the UFC knows to stay away from the Dagestani fighters. But obviously Chimaev doesn't care. I don't even need to explain his absolute bloodthirst, because his viral post-fighting interview in UFC 267 does it best. The 28-year-old is screaming at the top of his lungs in the viral clip, saying that he'll kill everybody, and the UFC crowd is just cheering him on. His bar for opponents has to be extremely high, because even his sparring partners are big names in the UFC, like Darren Till. And he's also well known to be intense in his sparring sessions, often being told to take it easy. I mean, Chimaev's nickname is Wolf for a reason.
Tough guy, brother. I didn't know he was so tough. Well, the guy come up with Brazil hard, you know. I know Brazilians. Many guys, my brothers, my big brother here. He from day one with me.
And that is exactly why nobody wants to fight him. I mean, Khamzat recently went as far as to say that he's literally having a hard time finding opponents who want to fight him. Usually, with fighters who are growing into fame like Chimaev, many fighters want to fight them, since if you take down someone famous, you get major attention and clout off that too. That's not the case with Chimaev. And I get it. With the performances he's put up severely dominating his opponents, literally, it feels like maybe they should have chosen a different career. And Kevin Holland,
or if he was like the smarter thing to do was to avoid the ground. And I agree with him 100%. But I always feel like my coach is one of the best in the world, especially when it comes to grappling. And you guys all know that. One, the Ultimate Fighter.
Did actually have retirement rumors going around after his fight with Chimaev. The sick thing about all this is that Kevin Holland is just 30 years old. But after that fight, those rumors were believable. The UFC literally had to put him against Nate Diaz.
The way it works is the guy who won is usually the better fighter. But yeah, I mean, it's when he won under those circumstances, but or the way it went down. But yeah, he
an actual UFC icon to give him a fight. And mind you, Diaz came out of a very long break for that fight. That's what it takes to find a fight for Chimaev. Apparently, he looked for 4 separate opponents in 4 separate countries, but none of them wanted to fight. Yep, the dude is literally internationally feared. He can't find a fighter to fight him across full countries. Dana White claims he's thinking of putting Chimaev up against Colby Covington, but that match is a faraway fantasy as it is now. With Chimaev unable to make weight recently, he's shown interest in fighting at 185 pounds, and the welterweight division can be heard sighing with relief. I mean, he truly is unstoppable at welterweight. But there's one more reason why everyone's so scared of him. After all, his performance in the octagon is terrifyingly close to perfection. And I don't mean perfection as an exaggeration. If you count the prominent hits that Chimaev has taken throughout his UFC career, he's only ever been hit in 2 of his 6 fights. Trained fighters working professionally for months solely focused on beating him weren't able to hit him properly once.
Round 1. And listen, he still looks unbelievable, right? We're kind of like amazed that we're in the second round. That just speaks.
Let that sink in for a moment. In his Kevin Holland fight, he was able to manhandle Holland and just lift him up from one end of the octagon and place him on the other, and then proceed to put him in a submission hold with ease, winning the fight. I mean, he's picked up fighters and slammed them next to where UFC president Dana White is sitting, and during the fight, tried to talk to Dana just to explain how he's the best in the UFC and to give him more fights. Imagine how the people he's fighting would feel when he's doing that. I would actually have to call my mom and cry afterward if that were me. This had some people thinking Chimaev may be a glass cannon and wouldn't be able to handle a full contact bloody fight. And he proved them wrong too after his fight in UFC 273, where he showed that his speculated limits were just mere speculation. And that, folks, was why fighters are so scared of Khamzat Chimaev.